Now we are going to start with a topic that is a shadow. As you know that we have opaque objects, we have transparent objects, we have translucent objects, and just for your more information I would like to repeat those definitions again for you. Opaque object is that which do not allow light to pass through it, right? Translucent is that which allows some amount of light to pass through it, and transparent is that which allow all the light rays to pass through it, right? So if we need to classify the materials according to the passage of light, we have opaque, we have translucent, right, and we have transparent, right. So if we talk about that which allow light to pass, so opaque do not allow light to pass through it. Translucent allow some amount of light to pass through it, and transparent allow all light rays to pass through it. So when we are talking about the shadow, so you know that shadow is always cast in the presence of an opaque object. There are certain characteristics which you will come to know later when we will discuss this topic, that opaque object is very important to cast the shadow. Like if we need a proper shadow, there has to be an opaque object. That the shadow you must have noticed in a daily routine also. So like in a daytime when you are standing somewhere, so what happened, when there is sun around and you are standing, so what do you see? You see that there is a shadow cast on the road or any surface of the earth. It is just cast. Like if you are standing, then your shadow is cast. If there is any other opaque objects, the shadow is cast in such a way. So that means shadow is something, shadow is you can say a shadow is just a outline of the object which is actually cast. And when it is cast, when the light of any you can say light source is just blocked by any opaque object. I am just going to make you understand by taking an activity. Suppose I have a torch here. Let's say this is my torch. Right, it is on, that means it is emitting light, and here I have a screen. Let's say this is my screen, this is my torch and this is my screen. So torch is, as I told you, that torch is emitting light, so we can actually see the screen. But now what I am going to do is, I am going to place an opaque object here. Let us place a pencil here. This pencil is quite big, quite white, but I'm just going to take an example. So let's say this is a pencil. So as we know that pencil is you can say is an opaque object. So what will happen? It will not allow light to pass through this area. So as a result, the passage of the light is just blocked according to the width and the height of the pencil. And when we see on the screen, the shadow is cast on the screen just like similar to the outline of the you can say an opaque object, that is of the pencil. So this is a shadow. So how the shadow is cast? When opaque object is placed in the path of light, or you can say when opaque object is placed, it is just blocking the passage of light and it just casts the outline of that opaque object on the screen. So this is what is a shadow. So this is the shadow. So what is actually happening here? Just the opaque object is not allowing the light to pass through. So light is passing through you can say all around except the place where the opaque object is placed. So this is what is a shadow. Now what you see that if you increase the distance between the object and the screen, or you can say if you increase the distance between object and the source, you can increase either of. So what will happen? You will see that this shadow will have two areas. This shadow will have two areas. One area will be lighter. The shadow will be comparatively big. It will have two areas. One will be slightly you can say not so dark, or you can say will be light, and the one which is inner will be very dark. The light area of the shadow is called as penumbra region, and the dark region is called as umbra. So that means shadow consists of two parts. The lighter zone is called as penumbra, which is outside, and the inner dark zone is called as umbra. Now you know that when the umbra and penumbra are seen in case of shadow, suppose you have a point object. Suppose you have a point object. So when we are talking about the point object, it has only one region, that is umbra. But when we are talking about the extended object, when we are talking about any object which has a certain height, then it has both the regions penumbra, that is the outer, the lighter one, and also the umbra. So this is what is a shadow, and you know that shadow is just similar to the outline of the object, and means it casts the outline of the object, and inner side it is just dark because it is just stopping the passage of the light. So this is what is the shadow. So that means we conclude that to cast a shadow, four conditions are required actually. One, a source of light. Obviously, because there has to be a source of light, then only you can say the light will pass. And there should be an opaque object which should you can say obstruct the path. There should be screen where we can see it. So this actually should be there to means the condition necessary to cast a shadow. That means the luminous object, the opaque object, and the screen. Now what happened, as we know that opaque object do not allow any light to pass through. So therefore the shadow cast by an object, opaque object is quite dark. And if we talk about the translucent, suppose instead of pencil I keep a translucent object here, so then the shadow will, obviously it will cast because the translucent will allow some amount of light to pass through. So comparatively, compared to the opaque object, it is going to be weak. And when I replace it with transparent, so as we know that transparent do not block the light, so that means the transparent is not going to cast any kind of shadow. So this is all about the shadow. I think you got it. That shadow is cast when any opaque object is placed between the screen and the luminous object, and you can say the path of the light is just obstructed from the certain area, and that certain area is just you can say cast on the screen as an outline, and it is something called as the shadow. And I think you got it about umbra and penumbra also. It is seen in case of the extended object. Penumbra the outer region, umbra the inner region, the dark and the lighter one. And if we talk about point object, it has only one region, that is the umbra region. So this is all about the shadow. Now we are going to discuss more in this chapter about more topics which are based on the shadows.